This video is now in session, and Republicans and Democrats have not gotten anywhere when it comes to the infrastructure talk. Democrats, particularly Joe Biden, really wanted to have some kind of bipartisanship when it came to his infrastructure plans with the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan. But based on talks between himself and moderate Republicans, it seems like this bill is like the For the People Act. It's not going anywhere, and it's a sign of bipartisanship going down the drain. Back then, in the not the good old days, but back a couple decades ago, we actually had Republicans and Democrats actively working with each other to get bills passed, even if it was from the political opposition party. In the Ronald Reagan years, he got a lot of things done when Tip O'Neill, a Democrat, was in the House. In Bill Clinton's era, he was able to get some stuff done with Newt Gingrich, albeit not as much. And then in George H.W. Bush's years, he was able to work with Democrats on tax bills. So with all of these presidencies, it is certainly true that bipartisanship is possible, just that bipartisanship is taking a different definition today because Republicans in Congress are against any kind of action that Biden does. And while they offer their own policies, their own counter proposals, liberals and progressives, frankly, are against those kinds of plans because they believe that the Republicans' counteroffers are simply too simple and not enough funds. So with the infrastructure bill that Biden proposed, it would be around $3 billion. It would be several $billions. And Republicans, as a result, put a counter offer of $800 billion. Now, objectively speaking, $800 billion is a lot compared to Obama and compared to the Obama years of infrastructure. With the infrastructure talks that Obama had with Republicans, they got to around that mark. But it was pretty hard for them to get to that mark. Now with Biden, the fact that Republicans are offering that high of a cost in terms of a bill shows that Republicans have shifted a little bit more liberal, but it still ultimately will not go anywhere because $800 billion to a lot of Democrats is just like the same situation in 2010 and in 2008, 2010, 2012. It's just not enough in order to help the economy. So we reach a stalemate here where progressives really don't want to sacrifice that much, maybe just a couple $100 billion. Meanwhile, Republicans are adamant in stalling Biden's agenda, and as a result, making these kinds of bills that cost way less because they know that progressives are simply just going to deny it. And that is a problem for Biden because he has an election happening in 1.5 years, and he genuinely also does want to help the economy. So with the Senate filibuster still in place and still favoring Republicans, ultimately Democrats will have to do a lot more if Biden wants to get the infrastructure bill passed. Now, the infrastructure bill, the American Jobs Plan, does fall under reconciliation according to the Senate parliamentarian. But there's still going to be some struggle to get to that point where that is possible, and that mainly comes from Joe Manchin. Joe Manchin, we've talked about him a lot on this channel, but Joe Manchin is the most conservative Democrat of all the Democrats in the U.S. Senate. So by asking for bipartisanship, which is what he's asking for, then Democrats are going to have a harder time passing such a large bill like this. And that's not even accounting for the fact that Joe Manchin might not even want to spend that much money himself on the American Jobs Plan. and that presents a major obstacle for Joe Biden. Since he really just cannot get the American Jobs Plan passed, which is a very popular bill among Democrats, independents, and a lot of Republicans. So it's unfortunate, but it's just the truth. Where even though there might be supposed bipartisanship in the public, in Congress, there isn't really any sort of bipartisanship happening with these kinds of major pieces of legislation. And that's important because ultimately the United States will have to do something about infrastructure. It is crumbling, and infrastructure does present a major opportunity for the United States. Whenever a country cannot grow economically through other ways, infrastructure is the easiest way to grow the economy. China did this, and that in the 1990s and in the 2000s, and that's how they are able to rival the United States in terms of technology and the economy. It was through infrastructure, and it was through jobs created by that and urbanization that sprouted as a result of infrastructure. In other nations, in European nations, they benefited from high-speed rail. They benefited from better airports, and that really helped with their economy. That the same thing is happening in Africa, where infrastructure is starting to grow the economies of the developing countries. So with that example there, and an example of the United States being the Federal Highways Act that Dwight D. Eisenhower signed, we can see that infrastructure is really important if we want the economy to quickly rebound to its former glory. And to do that, the American Jobs Plan or some kind of infrastructure plan would have to be passed. But with this kind of stalemate on bipartisanship, then nothing's going to get done. And who will that hurt the most? It will hurt Democrats the most, because the opposition party is incentivized to go against the majority party, and they usually get benefits from doing so. If we look at the 2014 election, Republicans won because the voters were tired that nothing was getting done. Nothing in the Senate or the House was being enacted, and as a result, they blamed Obama for that, and they rewarded Republicans, even though Republicans were the one who were stalling the Democrats' bills. And the same thing can happen here in 2022 with Democrats losing seats because of a lack of action and a constant gridlock that we've seen before in the Obama years. So how will Biden respond to this? It's up to his mind, I guess, up to his interpretation. It might go through reconciliation, but obviously he has to juggle a lot of things with Joe Manchin, the American public, and as well as Republicans in Congress, and also progressives in his caucus. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.